Blue collar woodworkers, come on in. You know me. I'm Mustache Mike. It's cold up here in the Great White North today, but in my corner of the workshop, it's really warm. And we're going to do some cuts on the old scroll saw today. So stick around, enjoy, throw a log on, and have some fun. What makes a scroll saw unique is the ability to make cuts that other saws either find difficult or they can't even cut at all. Now, most scroll sawing means following a basic pattern line. So we're going to take a brief look at some of the basic cuts that you'll be doing. To master them, you're going to need some good hand-eye coordination and practice to become proficient. Now, don't freak out on me. I know you can do it. Remember, you're a Mustache Mike fan. The first cut we'll discuss, and the most basic of course, is just a plain old straight line. But depending on the type and then the thickness of the wood, straight cuts can either be easy or they can be somewhat difficult. And the reason is, if you have a particular wood that you're using that has a very pronounced grain, there's going to be a greater tendency to follow that grain. Now let's consider cutting curves. Hey, that's what a scroll saw does best. And there are two basic hand setups to cut curves. The first one is to leave one hand stationary and then move the workpiece with the other hand. This method will make the smoothest cuts. The other method is to use both hands to move the workpiece. And I know it seems that this method might be the easiest in the beginning, but it will leave some of the roughest cuts that you will do. Now, cutting corners usually causes the scroll sawer the most anxiety. Relax. Now, there are two types of sharp corners. Inside, and then of course, outside. First, let's consider inside cuts. Now, inside cuts can be made by either making two cuts or by the backtracking method. On the other hand, outside cuts can be made by either the cut-through method, backtracking, or the loop method. Now, obviously, these methods will not work with pierce cuts. That's where on-the-spot turns come in. On-the-spot turns are really impossible on other types of saws because the blade is just too wide. Scroll saws are unique because the blades are very thin and they can turn in their own curve. When you get to the turn, stop and just rotate the workpiece quickly. Pivot the workpiece on the blade, holding slight pressure on the wood with the non-turning hand. Beginners, they tend to rotate, believe it or not, too slowly. And what happens is they'll file out a large hole instead of a very small one. Yeah, I know. Some guys use that old two-finger spin, but it's really hard to get good turns for most people that way. Again, it's going to take some practice, but when you master this, it will be your most valuable sawing skill. You can never practice too much. Make a pattern, glue it onto a piece of scrap wood, make those tight inside cuts, outside cuts. Another tip is to use thicker wood. If you use too thin of wood, sometimes you can overcompensate. Start with some MDF or some pine. So those are the basics. And I know not everybody's going to cut like old Mustache Mike does. People do cuts different ways. But the key is being persistent and continue to practice. And if you make a mistake and it's on a non-critical line, just ease back into the pattern line. Avoid a quick correction. Don't be like Chip. He makes quick corrections all the time with his chair, and he smashes into everything around here. Well, woodworkers, in 6 short episodes, we've covered a lot about the basics of the wonderful world of scroll sawing. Actually, we've just scratched the old surface. Now, as we move on to other things, we're going to, time to time, add some scroll saw techniques in the projects that we will make. Stay tuned then. And please remember to add me to your favorites and also add me to the subscriber list on YouTube. So until then, you can trust Mustache Mike, because remember, I would never pull your stash.